Look, I've been covering professional wrestling for years now, and I thought I'd seen everything. Championship betrayals, surprise returns, legendary confrontations that would go down in history. But what happened last night on Smackdown wasn't just another wrestling segment. What Cody Rhodes did when he stared down Jacob Fatu on that stage wasn't just cutting a promo or building toward another match. This was something different, something primal, and if you missed it, you need to understand exactly why the entire wrestling world is still trying to process what went down. I'm sitting here right now, still replaying that moment in my head, because Cody Rhodes, the man who finished his story, the man who climbed the mountain and captured the WWE Championship, just walked into what might be the most dangerous situation of his entire career. And he did it with his eyes wide open. Jacob Fatu isn't just another challenger. He isn't just another member of the Bloodline trying to make a name for himself. This man is legitimately terrifying, and Cody knows it better than anyone else because he's already felt the impact of Fatu's brutality firsthand. Everyone knows it. But last night, in front of thousands of screaming fans and millions watching at home, Cody looked directly into the eyes of one of the most dangerous human beings on the WWE roster and essentially said, "Bring it on." My hands were actually shaking when I watched this live. I remember exactly where I was, sitting on my couch with my phone blowing up from friends texting me asking if I was seeing what they were seeing. Because this wasn't scripted drama for the sake of entertainment. You could feel the tension radiating through your television screen. You could see it in Jacob Fatu's face, that barely contained rage that seems to define everything he does in that ring. And you could see something else in Cody's expression too. Not fear exactly, but recognition. The acknowledgement that he was standing across from the man who cost him everything during the 3 Stages of Hell match against Drew McIntyre, the man who made sure that one of the most important matches of his championship reign ended in devastating defeat. Let me take you back to the beginning of this entire saga because context matters here, and you need to understand just how personal this has become. The 3 Stages of Hell match between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre was supposed to be a defining moment in both men's careers. These are two of the absolute best performers in the entire industry, two men who have clawed their way to the top through sheer determination and undeniable talent. The build to that match was incredible, with both men pushing each other verbally and physically 4 weeks leading up to the encounter. The stakes couldn't have been higher, with Cody's championship on the line and Drew's legacy hanging in the balance. I remember sitting down to watch that match with such high expectations. 3 Stages of Hell matches are always special because they force competitors to dig deeper than they ever have before, to showcase versatility and endurance across 3 different match types. The first fall was traditional wrestling, pure technical excellence where both men could showcase their in-ring abilities. The second fall was a street fight, allowing them to embrace the chaos and brutality that both are more than capable of delivering. And the third fall, if necessary, was supposed to be a steel cage match, the ultimate test of will and determination. The match itself was absolutely phenomenal. Cody and Drew were delivering a classic, the kind of performance that wrestling fans talk about for decades afterward. Each fall was intensely competitive, with both men trading victories and pushing each other to the absolute limit. The crowd was electric, fully invested in every near fall, every big move, every moment of drama. I was on the edge of my seat, completely absorbed in what I was witnessing, thinking that regardless of who won, we were watching something special unfold. And then Jacob Fatu showed up, and everything changed in the most devastating way possible. I'll never forget the moment his music hit. The confusion in the arena was palpable because nobody expected the Bloodline to get involved in this particular match. This was a personal rivalry between Cody and Drew, something that existed outside the Bloodline's ongoing storylines. But there he was, Jacob Fatu, walking down that ramp with that predatory intensity that makes your blood run cold. Solo Psycho was with him, along with the other Bloodline members, but it was Fatu who commanded all the attention. You could see it in the way he moved, in the focus in his eyes. He wasn't there to observe or make a statement. He was there to inflict damage. What happened next still makes me angry when I think about it. Fatu didn't wait for an opening or a distraction. He didn't need the element of surprise or numerical advantage. He simply entered the fray like a force of nature, targeting both Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre with equal viciousness. The referee was powerless to stop him, security couldn't contain him, and the sheer brutality of his assault was shocking even by professional wrestling standards. I watched as Fatu grabbed Cody Rhodes and delivered a Samoan drop onto the steel steps with such force that I genuinely worried about Cody's spine. The impact echoed through the arena, and the crowd's cheers turned to gasps of concern. But Fatu wasn't done. He turned his attention to Drew McIntyre, who was trying to recover and defend himself, and hit him with a running hip attack that sent Drew crashing into the barricade so hard that a section of it collapsed under the impact. My friend Sarah was actually at that event live, sitting in the 5th row, and she told me later that the sound of the impacts was even worse in person. She said you could hear the thuds and crashes over the crowd noise, that sickening sound of bodies colliding with unforgiving steel and wood. She said several people around her looked genuinely concerned, that the line between entertainment and actual danger seemed to blur in those moments. But Jacob Fatu still wasn't finished. In what can only be described as a display of absolute dominance, he grabbed both Cody and Drew and proceeded to put them through the announce table with a double chokeslam that left debris scattered across ringside. The announcers had barely escaped in time, abandoning their headsets as this human wrecking ball destroyed everything in his path. And through it all, Fatu's expression never changed. No smile, no showboating, no celebration. Just cold, calculated destruction. The aftermath of that attack allowed Drew McIntyre to capitalize and secure the victory in the 3 stages of Hell match. And while Drew is an incredible competitor who absolutely deserved the win on any other night, there's no denying that Jacob Fatcher's interference fundamentally altered the outcome. Cody Rhodes didn't lose because Drew was the better man that night. He lost because a 300-pound Samoan monster decided to insert himself into the match and systematically destroy both competitors. In the weeks following that match, the wrestling world waited to see how Cody would respond. Would he demand a rematch with Drew? Would he immediately go after the Bloodline? Would he take time off to recover from the attack? The speculation was endless, with everyone from casual fans to industry insiders offering their predictions about what the American Nightmare would do next. I spent those weeks rewatching footage of the attack, analyzing every angle, trying to understand the motivation behind Thatcher's actions. The Bloodline's reasoning seemed obvious enough on the surface. They wanted to make a statement, to assert their dominance over the entire WWE landscape. By attacking Cody Rhodes, they were sending a message to the champion. By attacking Drew McIntyre, they were showing that nobody was safe from their reach. But there was something about the intensity of Thatcher's assault that suggested it went deeper than simple faction warfare. Smackdown last night was the first time Cody Rhodes had appeared on television since that brutal attack. The anticipation leading up to the show was incredible. WWE had been promoting his return all week, teasing that the American Nightmare had something important to say. Social media was buzzing with speculation. Would he challenge Drew to a rematch? Would he call out Solo Psycho and the entire Bloodline? Would he announce he was taking time off to heal? When the show opened, there was this electricity in the air that you could feel even through your television screen. The crowd was hot, anticipating something special because rumors had been swirling all week that something major was going down. Solo Psycho and the Bloodline had been running roughshod over the entire brand 4 months now, and with Jacob Thatcher added to their ranks, they seemed absolutely unstoppable. This wasn't the Bloodline of Roman Reigns anymore. This was something darker, more unpredictable, more violent. Jacob Thatcher had already made his presence felt in devastating fashion over the previous weeks beyond just his attack during the 3 stages of Hell match. He demolished some of the toughest competitors on the roster with a brutality that honestly made me uncomfortable at times. And I don't say that lightly. I've watched hardcore matches, street fights, Hell in a Cell encounters that push the limits of what the human body can endure. But there's something about the way Thatcher operates that feels different. It's not just about winning matches or gaining championships. It feels personal, like every opponent represents something he needs to destroy. The show progressed through its first hour with several matches and segments, but you could tell the crowd was waiting for something more. Every time there was a pause or a commercial break, you could hear them buzzing with anticipation. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Bloodline's music hit and they made their entrance. Solo Psycho led the way, carrying himself with that cold confidence that has become his trademark. Tamar Tonga and Tonga Loe flanked him, looking ready for violence at a moment's notice. And bringing up the rear was Jacob Thatcher, that mountain of a man who seems to grow more intimidating every time you see him. The group made their way to the ring, and Solo grabbed a microphone to address the WWE Universe. He talked about dominance, about legacy, about how the Bloodline was untouchable and unstoppable. He specifically mentioned the 3 stages of Hell match, crediting Jacob Thatcher with sending a message that needed to be sent. He said that Cody Rhodes had gotten too comfortable as champion, that he'd forgotten what real competition looked like, and that the Bloodline had simply reminded him of his place in the pecking order. The crowd booed mercilessly, but Solo seemed to feed off their hatred, his smile growing wider with each wave of negative reaction. Jacob Thatcher stood silently during Solo's promo, his arms crossed over his massive chest, his eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable to watch. Even through the television screen, you could sense the violence coiled up inside him, ready to explode at any moment. This wasn't a man playing a character or putting on a show. This was someone genuinely dangerous who happened to work in professional wrestling. And that's when Cody's music hit. The reaction was absolutely deafening, one of those genuine organic responses that you can't manufacture no matter how hard you try. The crowd erupted with such force that I swear I could feel it through my television speakers. People were on their feet, screaming themselves hoarse, waving signs and banners with Cody's face on them. The American Nightmare had returned, and the WWE Universe was ready to rally behind him. When Cody walked out onto that stage, there was something different about his demeanor. Usually, he carries himself with that polished confidence, that air of someone who's been to the top of the mountain and knows exactly who he is. But last night, there was an edge to him. His jaw was set differently. His eyes had a hardness that we haven't seen since his battles with Roman Reigns. This wasn't the smiling, charismatic Cody Rhodes who throws his weight belt into the crowd and soaks in the adulation. This was a man on a mission, someone who had scores to settle and wasn't interested in pleasantries. I actually met Cody once at a fan convention about 3 years ago, before he'd even returned to WWE. This was during his time building his legacy outside the company, when everyone wondered if he'd ever come back. I stood in line for almost 2 hours just to get 30 seconds with him, and what struck me most was how genuine he seemed. Not like a larger-than-life superstar, but like someone who genuinely loved what he did and respected everyone who supported him. He signed my poster, took a photo with me, and I remember him looking me dead in the eye and saying that his story wasn't finished yet. At the time, I thought he meant the championship, finishing what his father never could. But standing there watching him last night, I realized his story is still being written, and the chapter involving Jacob Thatcher might be the most dangerous one yet. So Cody walks down that ramp, and you can feel the anticipation building with every step. The crowd is chanting his name, but there's an undercurrent of concern too, because everyone watching knew what was coming. The Bloodline was already in the ring, Solo Sikoa standing in the center with the cold expression he always wears, Tamar Tonga and Tonga Loa flanking him like attack dogs waiting to be unleashed. And there, standing slightly apart from the others, was Jacob Fatu. Even just standing still, the man radiates menace in a way that's difficult to articulate unless you've seen it yourself. Cody grabbed a microphone, and the arena quieted down enough for him to speak. And this is where things got real. He didn't come out there to play politician or cut a traditional babyface promo about respect and competition. Instead, he addressed the elephant in the room that everyone had been dancing around for weeks. He talked about the 3 stages of Hell match, about how he and Drew McIntyre were in the middle of a classic encounter, about how they were giving the fans exactly the kind of performance they deserved to see. And then his voice changed, dropping to this lower register that conveyed barely controlled fury. He talked about how Jacob Fatu had stolen that moment from everyone. From the fans who paid good money to see a clean, competitive match. From Drew McIntyre, who deserved to win or lose on his own merit. And most importantly, from Cody himself, who had his championship reign tainted by outside interference that he never asked for and didn't deserve. The crowd was hanging on every word, and I found myself leaning closer to my television screen, not wanting to miss a single syllable. Cody acknowledged what everyone already knew, that Fatu is dangerous, that he's unlike anyone Cody has faced before, that there's a legitimate question about whether anyone can actually stop him. But then he said something that made the entire arena explode with approval. He said that being dangerous doesn't give you the right to insert yourself into other people's business, that attacking someone from behind doesn't make you tough, it makes you a coward hiding behind the Bloodline's reputation. The camera cut to Jacob Fatu's face, and I've never seen someone look so intensely focused and simultaneously unhinged. His jaw was clenched so tight you could see the muscles working in his face. His eyes never left Cody, burning with an intensity that was genuinely unsettling. You could see his chest rising and falling with these deep breaths like he was physically restraining himself from launching across that ring and tearing Cody limb from limb. But Cody wasn't finished. He said that he'd spent the last few weeks thinking about that attack, replaying it in his mind, feeling the impact of Fatu's moves over and over again. He said he'd been tempted to take time off, to heal up properly, to wait for the perfect moment to respond. But then he realized that waiting wasn't the answer. Plotting and scheming wasn't going to satisfy the burning need for retribution that had been consuming him since that night. This is when Cody's promo took a turn that nobody expected. He looked directly at Jacob Fatu and said something that sent chills down my spine and apparently everyone else's too based on the crowd reaction. He said that Fatu might have cost him the 3 stages of Hell match, might have handed Drew McIntyre a victory that should have been earned rather than gifted, but that attack had also awakened something in Cody that had been sleeping for too long. The same ruthless competitor who fought his way back to WWE, the same driven individual who refused to accept no for an answer when everyone said he couldn't finish his story. That version of Cody Rhodes was back and Jacob Fatu was going to experience him firsthand. The crowd absolutely lost their minds. Signs were waving, people were jumping up and down, and the noise level was approaching levels that could probably be heard blocks away from the arena. This was the Cody Rhodes they wanted to see, the fierce competitor who wouldn't back down from anyone or anything. Solo Sikoa tried to interject, stepping forward with his microphone to presumably defend Fatu or escalate the situation further, but Cody cut him off immediately. He said this wasn't about the Bloodline as a whole, this wasn't about Solo's desperate attempts to fill Roman Reigns' shoes, this wasn't about Tamar Tonga or Tonga Loa or any of their ongoing schemes. This was specifically and exclusively about Jacob Fatu, the man who decided to make himself relevant by attacking Cody from behind during one of the most important matches of his career. Then Cody did something that absolutely floored me and everyone else watching. He turned his attention back to Jacob Fatu and issued a direct challenge. Not for some future pay-per-view event, not for next month's premium live event, but for right here, right now, tonight on Smackdown. He said if Fatu was really as dangerous as everyone claimed, if he was really this unstoppable force that the Bloodline wanted everyone to believe he was, then he should have no problem stepping into the ring with Cody Rhodes one-on-one, no interference, no backup, just 2 men settling their business like professionals. The atmosphere in that arena reached a fever pitch. People were screaming so loud that the commentators could barely be heard over the din. This was the kind of moment that wrestling fans live for, when real emotion and genuine stakes combine to create something that transcends normal entertainment. This wasn't just about moves and counter-moves anymore. This was about pride, about revenge, about 2 men who genuinely seemed ready to hurt each other for real. Jacob Fatu's response was perfect in its simplicity. He didn't grab a microphone. He didn't deliver a promo or make threats. He simply smiled, this predatory grin that didn't reach his eyes, and started removing his shirt, preparing for immediate combat. The crowd somehow got even louder, sensing that they were about to witness something special. But before anything could happen, Solo Sikoa stepped between them, both literally and figuratively. He got in Fatu's face, clearly telling him to stand down, that this wasn't the time or place for this confrontation. You could see the conflict on Fatu's face, the desire to just unleash hell on Cody Rhodes right then and there, warring with whatever loyalty or strategy the Bloodline had in place. Cody seized on this moment brilliantly. He pointed out that once again, Fatu was hiding behind the Bloodline, letting Solo Sikoa make decisions for him like he was some kind of attack dog on a leash rather than the fearsome warrior everyone claimed he was. He said that if Fatu was really about that life, really as dangerous and unpredictable as his reputation suggested, he wouldn't need permission from Solo or anyone else to accept a direct challenge. The tension at this point was absolutely unbearable. My heart was racing watching this unfold, and I can only imagine what it felt like to be in that arena experiencing it live. Fatu looked like he was 2 seconds away from ignoring Solo completely and charging up to the stage to get at Cody. Solo looked frustrated, clearly trying to maintain control of a situation that was rapidly spiraling beyond his ability to manage. And Cody just stood there on that stage, unflinching, daring Fatu to make a move. WWE officials and referees started flooding the ringside area, clearly concerned that this was about to erupt into an all-out brawl that would be impossible to control. Adam Pearce, the Smackdown general manager, came out onto the stage next to Cody, trying to restore some semblance of order to the proceedings. But even as he was calling for cooler heads to prevail, you could see in his eyes that he knew this was beyond his control now. Cody continued his verbal assault, and this is where he crossed a line that you can't come back from. He brought up the 3 stages of Hell match again, but this time with more specific details. He talked about how Drew McIntyre, despite getting the win, knew that it was tainted. He said that Drew was probably somewhere backstage right now, knowing that his victory would forever have an asterisk next to it because it came not from his own excellence, but from Fatu's cowardly interference. Then Cody shifted gears and brought up Fatu's family legacy, the Anoa'i dynasty that has produced some of the greatest wrestlers in history. The Bloodline has always been built on this foundation of family pride and gene-rational excellence. The Rock, Roman Reigns, Rikishi, Yokozuna, the list of legendary names is extensive and impressive. But instead of showing reverence or respect for that legacy, Cody pointed out that being born into greatness doesn't automatically make you great yourself. He said that Roman Reigns earned his place at the top through years of hard work and evolution. He said that The Rock became the most electrifying man in sports entertainment through charisma and dedication. But Fatu, according to Cody, was trying to ride those coattails, using the family name as a shield while acting like a common thug who couldn't win matches without attacking people from behind. The disrespect in those words was palpable, and you could see it register on Fatu's face immediately. That shift from contained aggression to barely controlled fury was instant and terrifying. His whole body language changed, muscles tensing, fists clenching, eyes going wide with rage. Family and legacy mean everything in Samoan culture, and Cody had just insulted both in the most public way possible. Solo Sikoa's attempts to maintain control were rapidly failing. Tamar Tonga and Tona Loe looked ready to charge the stage themselves. The entire Bloodline was on the verge of exploding, and Cody Rhodes stood there in the eye of the storm, completely unbothered by the chaos he'd created. My cousin Michael, who I mentioned earlier works backstage at WWE events, later told me that the producers were going absolutely crazy during this segment. Apparently, some of what Cody said went beyond what had been scripted or approved, venturing into territory that made everyone nervous about how Fatu would react. But that's the beauty and danger of live television. Sometimes the best moments come when talented performers trust their instincts and take risks that more cautious people would avoid. Cody then delivered what might have been the most impactful line of the entire promo. He said that he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for everyone who believed in his story, everyone who supported him through his journey back to WWE and his quest for the championship. He was fighting for the integrity of competition, for the idea that matches should be decided by the competitors involved rather than outside interference. And most importantly, he was fighting to send a message that actions have consequences, and Fatu's actions at the 3 stages of Hell match were about to come back to haunt him in the worst way possible. The crowd was absolutely electric at this point, chanting Cody's name so loud that it felt like the entire building might shake apart. Signs were waving everywhere, people were recording on their phones, and the energy in that arena was the kind that gives you goosebumps even when you're watching from home. Fatu finally had enough. He shoved Solo Sikoa aside, not violently but firmly enough to make it clear that he wasn't taking orders anymore. He pointed at Cody Rhodes and made a throat-slashing gesture that carried more menace than 1,000 words ever could. The message was clear, this was personal now, and someone was going to pay a heavy price for making it so. Cody responded by dropping his microphone and walking to the very edge of the stage, getting as close to the ring as possible without actually leaving his elevated position. The 2 men locked eyes, and for several long seconds, the entire arena seemed to hold its collective breath. No music, no commentary, just 2 competitors staring each other down with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. Then Cody did something that I still can't believe he had the audacity to do. He pointed directly at Fatu, then pointed at himself, then made a belt gesture around his waist. He was telling Fatu that not only did he want this fight, but he was willing to put his championship on the line to make it happen. The challenge couldn't have been clearer or more direct. Security finally managed to create a barrier between the stage and the ring, but it felt almost pointless. Everyone knew this was temporary. Whatever was building between Cody Rhodes and Fatu wasn't going to be settled by security guards or backstage officials talking sense into either man. This was personal now on a level that transcended normal wrestling rivalries, and when things get that personal, that's when the real magic and real danger happens. Adam Pearce grabbed a microphone and tried to take control of the situation. He announced that due to the volatile nature of this confrontation and the safety concerns it presented, he would be meeting with WWE management to determine the appropriate time and place for Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu to settle their differences. The crowd booed this announcement loudly, clearly wanting to see the fight happen right then and there, but Pearce stood firm. Cody grabbed Pearce's microphone and said that was fine, that he'd wait for management to set up the match properly. But he made it crystal clear that this wasn't going away, that Jacob Fatu had made the biggest mistake of his career when he decided to attack him during the 3 stages of Hell match. He promised that when they finally did meet in that ring, whether it was next week or next month, Fatu was going to learn a very painful lesson about the consequences of sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Jacob Fatu stood in the ring, his chest heaving with barely contained fury, his eyes never leaving Cody's form on the stage. Solo Psycho was trying to talk to him, presumably trying to calm him down or strategize or something, but Fatu clearly wasn't listening. His entire focus was on Cody Rhodes, and the promise of violence that hung in the air between them was so thick you could practically taste it. As Smackdown went to commercial, the final image was of these two men locked in this staredown, neither willing to blink or back down. The cameras caught every detail, the set of Cody's jaw, the fire in Fatu's eyes, the tension in both men's postures. It was the kind of image that gets used in promotional materials 4 years afterward, the kind of moment that defines rivalries and creates legends. When the show came back from commercial, both men were gone, but the buzz in the arena hadn't diminished at all. The commentators were trying to process what had just happened, talking about the intensity and personal nature of the confrontation. They speculated about when and where the match might happen, what stipulations might be added, whether the championship would indeed be on the line. Throughout the rest of Smackdown, you could feel that confrontation hanging over everything else that happened. Other wrestlers referenced it in their backstage segments. The crowd would spontaneously break into chants for Cody or boos for the Bloodline. The entire show had been fundamentally altered by those 15 minutes of pure, unfiltered intensity. Social media absolutely exploded in the hours following the show. Twitter was trending worldwide with multiple hashtags related to the confrontation. Clips of Cody's promo were being shared millions of times across every platform imaginable. Wrestling news sites crashed from the traffic as everyone tried to read analysis and speculation about what comes next. YouTube reaction videos started appearing almost immediately, with everyone from casual fans to respected industry veterans weighing in on the implications. What strikes me most about the whole situation is how real it all feels. Professional wrestling has always walked this line between predetermined entertainment and legitimate athletic competition. The best storylines are the ones that blur that line so effectively that you almost forget you're watching a scripted show. What's happening between Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu has crossed that threshold completely. When Cody talks about that attack during the 3 stages of Hell match, you can hear genuine anger in his voice. When Jacob Fatu stands there radiating menace and violence, it doesn't feel like a character he's playing. These two men have tapped into something authentic, something that resonates because it feels legitimate in a way that most wrestling feuds simply don't. I keep thinking back to that moment when Fatu delivered that Samoan drop onto the steel steps during the 3 stages of Hell match. The sound it made, the way Cody's body crumpled, the genuine concern on Drew McIntyre's face even though they were supposed to be opponents. That wasn't selling or acting. That was a real human being experiencing real pain, and now that same human being is demanding retribution. The parallels to other legendary rivalries are impossible to ignore. Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. The Rock had that genuine competitive edge that made every encounter must-see television. The intensity between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker transcended normal heel versus face dynamics. Centimeter Punk vs. John Cena brought a level of realism to their feud that made it feel more important than just another championship program. What Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu are building feels like it belongs in that same category of truly special rivalries. The personal stakes are high, the physical stakes are even higher, and both men seem genuinely invested in making this mean something beyond just winning a match or holding a title. Looking forward, the possibilities for this feud are endless and exciting. The obvious next step is a one-on-one match between them, probably with the championship on the line given Cody's challenge. But knowing WWE and knowing how personal this has become, I wouldn't be surprised if they add stipulations that raise the stakes even higher. A street fight would allow both men to embrace the brutality that seems inevitable when they finally collide. A steel cage match would create an enclosed environment where Fatu's power could be showcased but also where Cody's resourcefulness could shine through. Whatever form the match takes, I genuinely believe we're building towards something that people will remember and talk about for years to come. This isn't just another title defense or another challenger stepping up. This is about revenge, about redemption, about two men who have very legitimate reasons to want to hurt each other settling their differences in the most visceral way possible. The involvement of Drew McIntyre adds another fascinating wrinkle to the whole situation. He won the 3 stages of Hell match, but that victory is forever tainted by Jacob Fatu's interference. Does Drew insert himself into this feud seeking his own revenge on Fatu? Does he demand a rematch with Cody for the championship under fair conditions? The possibilities for storytelling here are rich and complex. As I sit here writing this, processing everything that happened on Smackdown last night, I can't help but feel that we're witnessing something special developing right before our eyes. WWE has given us incredible moments and feuds over the years, but this particular storyline has a chance to be truly memorable if they continue handling it with the care and intensity they've shown so far. Cody Rhodes came back to SmackDown last night with one purpose: to warn Jacob Fatu that his actions have consequences and that retribution is coming. He delivered that warning with conviction, with passion, and with an intensity that made it impossible to doubt his sincerity. Jacob Fatu received that warning and made it abundantly clear through his actions and demeanor that he not only accepts the challenge but welcomes it. These two warriors are now locked on an inevitable collision course, and when they finally meet in that ring with no barriers between them, the wrestling world will be watching with bated breath. The question isn't whether their match will be good, it's whether we're ready for the level of intensity and violence they seem prepared to bring. I know I'll be watching, probably with my heart in my throat just like I was last night. Because moments like these are why we love professional wrestling. When it's done right, when the performers are fully committed and the story resonates on a deep level, there's nothing else in entertainment that can match it. And make no mistake, Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu are doing it absolutely right.